All right, now it is my privilege to introduce August. August is a member of the church. He just finished a term on the board here, and we're privileged to have him around. He's a very interesting fellow, so I'm sure he has a good talk for us today. He's talked here before, and they've always been great. So without further ado, August.
Good morning. The title of my message this morning is Blessing and Curses, and to set the stage for that, I want to talk about karma. A word that I think most of us use is good karma, bad karma. So as you live your life journey, we hope that you're spreading good karma. But some people seem to do better at the negative side, bad karma. And some occupations, I think, like teaching, therapy, healing, give us opportunities to do good karma, but not automatically. So now the interesting thing about karma is that it works independently, particularly bad karma. The bad karma train leaves the station at least 4 times a day, and it will go where it's going without you and I on it. That's good news. You don't have to get on the train. So, in terms of looking at blessings and curses, what's begun to fascinate me about them is they're 2 sides of the same coin. The positive side of the coin is a blessing. The negative side is a curse. And where do we find curses? Well, the first place to look is the Old Testament. It is littered with curses. A lot of curses in the Old Testament. And the Psalms, for example, have nicknames among biblical scholars. The one I'm going to read, not the whole thing, because it's a long psalm, but is 109, and it is called the Judas Psalm. Be silent, O God of my praise, for the wicked and deceitful mouths are open against me. Somebody's saying bad things about him. You ever had anybody say bad things about you? Here we go. Speaking against me with lying tongues. They beset me with words of hate and attack me without cause. In return for my love, they accuse me, even as I make prayer for them. So they reward me evil for good and hatred for my love. Appoint a wicked man against him. Let an accuser bring him to trial. When he is tried, let him come forth guilty. Let his prayer be counted as sin. Now here comes the curse. May his days be few. May another seize his goods, steal his stuff. May his children be fatherless. Now this was not an amateur curse person. This was somebody who knew what they were doing. And his wife a widow. May his children wander about and beg. May they be driven out of the ruins that they inhabit. Ooh. May the creditor seize all that he has. This is scripture. Can you imagine? And strangers plunder the fruits of his toil. Let there be none to extend kindness to him, nor any to pity his fatherless children. Here we go again. May his posterity be cut off, and may his name be blotted out in the 2nd generation. Okay? May the iniquity of the fathers be remembered before the Lord, and let not the sin of his mother be blotted out. Let them be before the Lord continually. May his memory be cut off from the earth. I mean, is this guy tanked about his opponents? Yeah. So, and it goes on, but that gives you a flavor of it. I want to start with the negative curses. For just to get a handle on them, I scale them from 1 to 10. Let's take a benign example. You didn't get the grade that you thought you deserved on the essay in the 4th grade. So as you walked out of the classroom, you said, Damn that teacher. Okay. Now, the good news is that's only a level 3 curse. How do you remove them? You don't need to call me. You don't need a session. What you do is get a bar of soap, turn the shower on, and say a prayer. You sent the curse out, you can remove it. And it's a lower level curse, not like the one in the Judas psalm. So, but in terms of looking at some serious ones, my teacher at the Four Winds, Alberto Villotto, was a tenure-track professor of neuropsychology, PhD in neuropsych at San Francisco State University. And he got tired of looking at brain tissue under a microscope. He found it boring, even though it was a good job, paid well, and was tenure-tracked. So he decided to study indigenous people and how they heal. So he put out a number of grant proposals. You would study that in the field of anthropology. And he was waiting for some of them to come in so they could fund his studies. The phone rang in his office one day, and it was the head anthropologist in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. For those who don't know, Haiti is the voodoo capital of the Western Hemisphere. And he said, my assistant is going on sabbatical for 6 months, and I need somebody like yourself to come down and take his place. And Alberto said, well, it's a long plane ride, I don't know. And he said, by the way, I'm chairman of the committee that approves your grant proposal. He said, Thursday's flight be okay? So he flies down to Port-au-Prince, and they meet him at the airport, the head anthropologist, but he has another man with him. He's hit the big time. It's the head voodoo priest in all of Haiti. So they go out to dinner, and Alberto's going to take the job, and he has a week to go back and get his affairs in San Francisco in order, and then come down for the 6-month tour. At the end of the dinner, the anthropologist turns to the voodoo priest and says, you can demonstrate your power, but you can't kill him. Hello. So at this point, he was not an internationally known shaman. He thought, I don't believe in his system, he can't touch me. Wrong. So he flies back to San Francisco. They're supposed to do the ceremony on Tuesday. Nothing happens. He said, I knew it was a bunch of horse hockey. He can't touch me. Wednesday, nothing happens. He's flying back Friday. Thursday, he's unlocking the key to his apartment. His body is racked with intense pain. He's trying to struggle to get to the phone, to call 911, to get to the emergency room of the local hospital. The phone rings. It's the anthropologist. He said, we were going to do the ceremony on Tuesday, but we had too much to drink at dinner, and he can't do the ceremony while he's drunk, but he's doing it now. Alberto said, I don't care how much money it takes to get him off me. So that was his introduction to the dark side. So voodoo is sometimes called black magic, dark magic. Do I do voodoo? Absolutely not. It's the negative side of the owl. So I have taken an oath when I went to the Four Winds, his school, that I will use my gifts and abilities only to heal people. Now, there's an exception to that, and that is if I were in a grocery store and somebody was robbing it and held a knife to my throat, guess whose energy system would be going down quickly? That person's, real quick. About 3 seconds. Because I would be defending myself. But anyway, looking at curses, they are mild, and when people, there's now a thing on my website, and people call me up and say, do I have a curse? And I'll tell them whether they do or not, and how strong it is, and what would be involved to remove it. But some of the curses are really dangerous and are of a higher level. One of the students I had at college older adults, a woman about my age, came to me the fifth of the sixth classes and said, I won't be here the last class. My nephew, who was 12 years old, was killed in California in a mountain biking accident. And I said, well, that's certainly an excused absence. I'm sorry that happened. And then she said something that interested me. She said, he's the third male relative under 20 to die in that emergency room. That was my clue. So I said, do I have your permission to investigate this? And she said, I trust you, you can investigate and heal and so forth. What came out of it, to make a long story short, her family had generations ago emigrated from Scotland. The curse originated in 7th century Scotland. So we removed the curse. Working with another healer, I removed the curse. When she come back, I said, the good news is the curse is removed. And then started the questions. Who started it in 7th century Scotland? How did it get across the globe? And that's when I get amnesia. Because it's not helpful to look back and get names, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, all the information. The curse has been lifted. Move forward. Enjoy your life without the curse in terms of it. So the more serious curses are multi-generational and continue. And actually, the writer of the psalm, may your name be blotted out for all generations. That's the multi-generational curse. There it is. So one of the more interesting ones when I was working with Phil Ernst is a man called me up from Marion and he said, do you do Pakistani curses? And I said, sure. And then I hung up the phone and got scared. And I said, Phil, I think I need you on this one. And so he came over and the couple came down. The man from Marion had been in this country 40 years and he was Hindu. He was from India. But he had good friends from the next country over, Pakistan. Well, Pakistanis are generally Muslims. Now, they have wars between one another over there, but up in Marion, they come from the same neighborhood, so they're buddies. So this couple came down, and the presenting problem was the woman, who was only about 30 years old, was cursed by a Pakistani devil woman to not have any children. So he's on one side of the healing table, I'm on the other. I didn't have to hunt through her energy field to see where the curse was. Try reproductive organs. So I took a deep breath, called in my angels and guides, reached in, grabbed it, and flung it out the double doors. It sounded like a jet airplane taking off. I turned back to Phil, and he was standing there laughing. I said, okay, what's the punchline? He said, you blindsided the demon. I said, yes, I did. That's what I was trying to do, to get it out of here without getting it all over anybody. So, but we weren't finished. The woman who did this knew what she was doing, but she had died. But she was still lurking the earth looking for other victims. So what we had to do was call her in and heal her. And we did heal her and got her an angel who escorted her over to the heavenly realms just to get her off the planet. And I've done that with KGB agents, unrepentant Nazis, just get their spirits off the earth for the benefit of all of us. So anyway, now when bad things happen, I don't get TV, but I do pay attention to the world news on the computer and so forth. And of course, and our thoughts and prayers have been the tragedies in Paris. One man who lost his 35-year-old wife, and they have a 17-month-old son. He was interviewed and he said, quote, I will not give them the gift of my hatred. Wow. That just really struck me. So other places that you find a lot of curses is in warfare and things like that. Since I don't watch TV, I read a lot. And I'll be honest, I read 3 types of books. I read Adriana Trigiani's Italian-American romance novels because she writes good romance novels, and I share them with my friends. I read about everything I can get my hands on about shamanism and healing because that's what I do. And the third thing I read is stories about war. So I picked up a book for my recent reading, and it was called The Battle of the Denmark Strait. 1941, the war in the Atlantic, America had not yet entered, but was sending convoys of supplies to Great Britain. And the Germans sent out their brand new battleship, the Bismarck, followed by a sister ship, a cruiser called the Prince Eugen. And they were going to do surface raiding. And what happened is they got through the Denmark Strait, got through down through Iceland and that part. And 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, the hood on its radar picked up the Bismarck and started firing its 15-inch in diameter guns at the Bismarck. Didn't hit it, but that woke everybody up. And of course, the Bismarck had 8 15-inch guns and returned the favor. What happened was they kept shelling one another from 15 miles away. Now, they couldn't see one another, but here come the shells. Now, a 15-inch shell from a big battleship weighs 1,760 pounds. That's a lot of explosive. The 5th salvo hit the hood, and the hood had armor plating. It was the best battleship in the British Navy. It had armor plating on the front and back, but they were afraid of slowing it down too much, so they didn't put any in the center. That's where they kept their supplies for their guns. The 5th salvo hit that and started all these secondary explosions. 5 minutes later, the hood was in the ocean, 10,000 feet down, going to the ocean. 1,418 British sailors died. How many survived? 3. So, I don't know what words I could use to describe the British reaction, but a telegraph went out from the Admiral and its Admiralty, and it said 3 words: sink the Bismarck. Get it? All right. So 6 hours after the mighty hood goes down, an armada had gathered: 6 battleships, 2 aircraft carriers, 13 cruisers, and 21 destroyers, 42 warships. And they're all looking for the Bismarck. All right. They used World War I biplanes, and one of them threw a torpedo and hit the rudder of the Bismarck so it couldn't turn. So it was dead in the water. So that you get the picture. Bismarck can't move.
It turned, it just went around in a circle.
Yeah, well, little circle, but it's not going anywhere, right? So they closed in on it and sank it. Approximately 2,100, roughly, German sailors perished. About 125 survived. 4 of them were officers. And they were picked up by a British cruiser, and the ranking officer was one of the gunnery officers on the Bismarck. He was picked up, and it was interesting. They took the officers to officers' quarters, and they enlisted to the enlisted quarters. You know. So after a night's sleep and just glad to be on this planet, the German officer, who was, I think, an 05, so he would have been like a commander or flight colonel in Army terms, gets a knock on his door, and it's one of the naval personnel, and it's a note from the captain of the cruiser that had picked these German sailors up. And the captain's name is Captain Martin. And here's his note, I quote, "I will be glad if you will visit your men this morning with my commander, and then come to the bridge with him to visit me." Okay. "If there is anything you require for your personal needs, please let me know." Then, the last sentence, "I hope you slept well and feel none the worse for your swim." End quote. So, I was kind of fascinated by that because, I mean, the Germans sank the best battleship in the British Navy, and then 3 days later, they sank the Bismarck. That's kind of karma in action. You know, you sink mine, I sink yours, you know, type of thing. And so I kept reading, and I did a little research into Captain Martin. And here's what I found out. He wasn't a captain of a cruiser in the First World War. He was a seaman. He was captured by the Germans, and they treated him well. So when World War II comes and he's picking up German sailors and officers, he treats them well. So there's a lot of opportunities, but it's interesting that the Frenchman that I quoted, "I will not give them the gift of my hatred," Captain Martin and his pretty friendly note. There may have been a little dig on the "hope you're none the worse for your swim," but there's plenty of opportunities to just retaliate, okay? But I always remember the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber said, "An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth," which is an Old Testament principle, that if everybody obeyed that, the whole world would be blind and toothless. So how do we break out of this? So how do we break out of it? Well, we move on to the blessings part, and to that we go to the New Testament. Now, the opposite of a curse is a blessing. Matthew 5, the first part of the 5th chapter are the Beatitudes. And here we go. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and he sat down with his disciples. It came to him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Wow. "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who persecute you for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you when men revile and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account." This is the counterpoint to Psalm 109. Exactly the opposite. "Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so men so persecuted the prophets who were before you," and so on. So let's see if I can find the next. Okay. All right, I got Matthew 7. Continues in a blessing mode, but again with some negative language. "Judge not, for you will not be judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get." Okay? "Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eyes, but do not notice the log that is in your own eyes?" And so on and so forth. So I have an optional homework assignment for all of you, and I must give you a friendly warning. If you do it, it could change your life. So, it's your call whether you do it or not. What I would suggest you do is go home, and when there's a lull in the family action, write a list of all the people in your life that have harmed you. For some of us, it might be a short list. Others, it might be a long list. And then, once you get the list written, I want you to go back over it and bless each and every person. Ouch, I know. That's the way out. I'd be remiss in my talk if I didn't give you a way out. So, life is full of blessings and curses and opportunities for both of them. And I have found in my own life experience that when I move away from the revenge, the curse, and so forth, I do much better in terms of moving forward. So the opportunities, sometimes we get opportunities that are pretty clear, the choice between a curse or a blessing. And I hope that all of you, as you listen to me this morning, will move in the direction of a blessing. Thank you. And now, questions, thoughts, comments? All right.
Next week we get to hear about forgiveness. Next week we're going to hear about forgiveness, and I have a problem with that because it sounds like something you can do, whereas I think it's something you feel and something you are. Blessing, on the other hand, tell me, I'm trying to try this homework. Mr. Fuller gave an audience of 1,000 some homework. I was there 30 years ago and it changed my life. So I'm open to this, but how exactly, since I can't forgive, I do not know how to change the way I feel about those who have harmed me. I can say things, but that doesn't change. How do I bless them? Just say, I bless you? Is that sufficient? Or wish them well? Or think of something specific?
Well, it's the intention that comes from your heart to literally bless them. Sorry that this is getting so biblical. I know this is a UU church, but I have to take it where it goes. Another quote from the New Testament is, "The vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." So there is a vengeance department, and guess who's in charge of it? God. So to me, that's always very liberating, because then that means, Harry, you and I don't have to have a vengeance department. We can bless those who say bad things about us or do bad things against us.
You say the word bless, that's going to be sufficient. I bless you.
Yes. It's not, it's doable. Valerie.
Well, I don't know, but wouldn't it, if you're just willing to, I mean, shouldn't that be like on the road to actually blessing? Like perhaps it's just enough to say, I am willing to let go, and I am willing to bless you, so that whatever is keeping you from doing that, hopefully you set in motion that intention with those words. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Intention is tension in everything, and I do my best spiritual work when I do it from my heart, okay? And so it is my intention to bless you, Harry. It's that, I mean, if you would like a more complicated formula, I can think of one, but it's not that complicated. Don't go to the curse side, don't get out and read that person's name and then read with great feeling Psalm 109. Say, even though I am less than happy with what you did or said or whatever, but it is my intention from my own heart to bless you.
It's been my experience that holding in animosity or whatever you have for a particular person is exhausting, and actually letting that go is a huge relief.
Well, and I think the Frenchman, I will not give you the gift of my hatred, I feel pretty good about that 17-month-old son because he's not going to be raised with a lot of hatred. Now, is there room for hate? Well, sure. His 35-year-old wife was murdered. I mean, that's not a good thing, okay? But so how this connects? Who's talking about forgiveness next week? Rob is okay.
August, can you explain how a curse works? How can somebody, cursing you or cursing their children or whatever, actually bring about some result?
Well, again, there are levels of curses. I don't like the grade I got on my behavior, damn you, is a fairly low-level curse, okay? The psalmist who wrote Psalm 109 knew, okay? And actually, the people who do serious curses, what they do is they do a ritual, they do a ceremony, and they send out that intention and attach that from their energy field to your energy field to make it happen. And it can, the really powerful stuff, I mean, you imagine the power and the amount of harm that a curse in 7th century Scotland did from then to a couple years ago. So yeah, that's a pretty strong curse.
Would you address the curse on the acknowledged curse on the Kennedy family? Where'd that come from? What insight do you have? It's a heavy one.
I don't know. I don't know. Is there a curse on the Kennedy family? It wouldn't surprise me. I have not been contacted by the Kennedy family, and even though I have a little blurb on my website that says, if you think you have a curse, call me, I'll let you know. Of course, I get calls to the negative. One lady calls me up and said, I want you to curse my ex-husband. And I said, no, I don't do curses, I remove curses. When you look at the assassination of President Kennedy and then his brother Bobby, generally when you get these multiple tragedies, that's a pretty good sign that there's a curse operating. So, yeah.
I was always entertained with the Chevier and Fiddler on the Roof with the Russians. He said, bless and keep the Russians far away from us. It was in the
Oh, okay, the Fiddler on the Roof, okay,
bless
yeah.
them and keep them away from us.
That's a nice way of putting it, rather than, curse all the Russians and all the ground they walk on type of thing, so, yeah. Yes.
I have no idea what you said since I left, but along the same lines as we were talking about before, sometimes we're just not ready to forgive because we have all this animosity, and so I thought maybe if you just said, whatever I said. Well, in any event, I just was reminded of something which is maybe along the same lines, but a lot of people believe in affirmations. But I have also read a number of negative things about affirmations, which is if you say, I am very skinny, I don't believe that. And so right away I'm going to argue with myself, I'm going to have a battle. So really what you're doing is perhaps bringing about the opposite effect because you don't believe it. But what I've read, one person suggests that instead of saying I am something you're not yet, you can say I am in the process of becoming very skinny, or whatever it may be. And so I think that's kind of along the same lines. Mm-hmm. You may not forgive someone, you may really still still be so angry. But if you say, I am in the process of forgiving, or I am intending to forgive, or I wish to forgive, it's my intent, whatever, I think it's in the
Well,
same
an
area.
example of that from my own life, I was directing a counseling service, and I was going through my midlife divorce. There was no scandal, there was no affair. I went to work one day, and the chairman of the board was there, and he said, "Give me your keys. You're done." So suddenly, I went from a CEO job to unemployment. So it's interesting where the angels came from. They all had olive drab military uniforms on. They were my friends in the military. And the first one said to me, "Are you going to be all right financially?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'm $45,000 in debt." And he looked at me calmly and he said, "I've got $100,000, says you're not going anywhere." I had to recalibrate my definition of a friend. Okay, I never touched his money, but he backed me. And the second guy said, "How's your car running?" I said, "It's got 452,000 miles on it, breaks down twice a month. I need a new car." He said, "You got my extra car, changed the oil filter, put regular gas in it." So after 2 angels, I quit hyperventilating. And then I thought, this is strange because they usually come in 3s. So the 3rd angel came. Joe O'Leary was a right side door gunner, Republic of Vietnam, as a 20-year-old. And he said, "Who did this to you, and do you want them killed or maimed?" Oh, a choice. How wonderful. Now, what you have to understand about the psychology of the military, I was these guys' chaplain, is that he, as a door gunner, he had killed 1,000 people. So how hard do you think it is for somebody that's done that to add 2 middle-aged white guys? Not a big deal. So I went home that night and I had some delicious fantasies. Man. And I called him the next day and I said, "Joe, I know you got my back and I appreciate that. I will call you if I need you. I'm going to do much better if I put my energies into rebuilding my life." But he was serious. He said, "You want them dead or do you just want broken arms and legs? What do you want?" So you got to make that choice, Harry.
And on that note, thank you, August.
You're welcome.